Guarantees are really hard, especially if you're a professional services company, right? Like you go to McDonald's and you get a burger and it's wrong. Well, they'll guarantee your food, so they'll give you new food, or they maybe give you your money back. But you're talking about a few dollars. So our challenge is like, what's our guarantee as a professional services company when you're doing tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars, in a sell? It's really hard to give that money back, especially after lots and lots of work if something could go wrong. So our 5-star service guarantee is a guarantee that we will provide that crucial, as it says, 5-star level service, that white glove service throughout all of our delivery. And so we go through a number of different exercises and links and efforts to ensure that we're delivering the highest quality service, so that there would never be an instance where somebody would want a refund or not be happy with our service.
Welcome to Grow Think Tank. This is the one and only place where you will get insight from the founders and the CEOs of the fastest growing privately held companies. I am the host. My name is Gene Hammett. I help leaders and their teams navigate the defining moments of their growth. Are you ready to grow?
Today we're going to talk about a service guarantee and what that has to do with your employee alignment, your company growth, and all the good things that you want to happen inside your business. Yep, you probably have some type of guarantee, but is it really aligned with the service that you're offering? Is it aligned with how the employees deliver that service? And is it aligned with the values and culture of the company? Well, that's the key question. Today, our special guest is Josh Sweeney. He is the founder, CEO of FounderScale. They are a marketing and sales alignment organization. He calls himself a revenue agency, not a digital agency. So it's pretty interesting framing there he has around the company. But they talk about their 5-star service guarantee. And what that really is about how they look at the level of service. Is it really 5 out of 5 stars? And they measure this monthly and weekly to make sure that everything is in alignment across the service that they offer, the experience that that customer has. I think it's really fascinating. We talk about, why that really matters, the service guarantee, to get employee alignment and what it means when you do this right. So the service guarantee is a very powerful tool if you know what it is and how to use it. We unpack that today with our interview with Josh. My job here is to help you be the leader that your team deserves, to help you create the kind of focus and clarity across the company and alignment that is necessary. One of the tools that we use with clients is a leadership performance assessment. This assessment is got 7 dials, and it will allow you to quantify exactly where your leadership is today and identify what's missing, and then also qualify the real aspects that are missing and need to be addressed for your company to scale and grow to that next level predictably and without too much chaos. We know there's a certain amount that's acceptable, but too much provides conflict, and that is hard to deal with. So if you want to know where your leadership performance assessment comes in, it's absolutely free. If you're listening to my voice here in this podcast in some way, just put it in the form that you heard me on the podcast, and it's absolutely free. Otherwise, it's $1,000 to be able to do this. And so I want to give it to you absolutely free. All you have to do is mention the podcast, and it's my bonus to you. Just go to just go to genehammett.com and schedule a call today, and you can get that leadership performance assessment. When you think about your next steps, make sure you know from clarity what the next steps are, and I'd love to help you. Now, here's the interview with Josh. Josh, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I am fantastic. We're going to have an incredible conversation about really what does it take to get your employees to align with your 5-star guarantee. Before we dive into that, tell us about FounderScale.
Sure. So at FounderScale, we help businesses go from founder revenue to scalable revenue. Most founders generate the majority of the revenue in their organization, and at some point they want to scale up. They want to exit. They want the company to grow without them. And most people go out and try and hit the easy button. They hire the agency or the lead gen service and find out that doesn't really work the way that they thought it would. And so once they do that, they can call us and we'll walk them through the framework.
Well, I love it because you're probably right in my wheelhouse. So we're going to have another conversation about how you could serve us. But today we're going to focus on this interview and really try to get a better understanding of what your 5-star service guarantee is. So just go ahead and be blunt with me. What is the 5-star service guarantee?
Yeah. So Guarantees are really hard, especially if you're a professional services company, right? Like you go to McDonald's and you get a burger and it's wrong. Well, they'll guarantee your food, so they'll give you new food, or they maybe give you your money back. But you're talking about a few dollars. So our challenge is like, what's our guarantee as a professional services company when you're doing tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars, in a sell? It's really hard to give that money back, especially after lots and lots of work if something could go wrong. So our 5-star service guarantee is a guarantee that we will provide that crucial, as it says, 5-star level service, that white glove service throughout all of our delivery. And so we go through a number of different exercises and links and efforts to ensure that we're delivering the highest quality service, so that there would never be an instance where somebody would want a refund or not be happy with our service.
Now, would you say you're a traditional digital agency, or would you put yourself in a different category?
So we call ourselves a revenue agency because for the founders we work with, bringing revenue, the dollars up, requires sales and marketing balance and both sides of that coin. So a lot of times we'll see people that are all sales and no marketing, and they're having trouble scaling. They're all marketing, but nobody's following up on the leads. And so they're not scaling revenue. And so we're a revenue agency. We have a really interesting balance in that my co-founder, Maria, actually has over a decade in marketing and marketing automation and growing startups. And I have over a decade on the sales and CRM implementation side. So it's really unique position for us to be able to help companies on revenue generation. So we call it a revenue team, not a sales and marketing team.
Again, I'm loving the way you guys frame things in here, because that resonates exactly with who I am. And it's also a lot of the people here listening on the podcast. So I think you're in a great place, Josh. This 5-star guarantee with agencies, I've had my own problems with agencies. I'm sure you've heard some of the horror stories, and people have come to you after wasting a lot of money. What kind of results are you guys guaranteeing? Not just service level, but results?
Yeah. So after the service level, I mean, the results are that you're going to have, and it's part of the framework. So the initial part of our framework, the result is you're going to have a very clear vision that you and your team are bought into, that matches your budget and timeline. So here's one of the things we saw, and keep in mind, in my last company that I grew to a few million and sold, I spent over $300,000 trying lots of different things, right? So I was on the receiving end of this. But normally what other companies will do is they'll do this big strategy, and really that pays for them to go put together a big project plan and tell you it's going to cost you $200,000 to solve your problem, right? And then you as a founder have to justify whether you trust them, whether it's going to work, and then you ultimately have to spend the money to find out, right? And normally companies do that many times before they find a solution. So we invert that. We want to be really good stewards of our founders' capital, and so we start with a budget. And we start with a timeline. And so we're able to provide results that are based on their budget and timeline. And so the first step in the first 8 weeks, we are providing a lot of clarity. What can you actually do with the budget that you have? And how can you put that to work? And then the other thing we're guaranteeing, in that portion is really candid conversations and education. So people have a lot of misconceptions around different pieces of marketing and how they fit. And so we clarify a lot of that before we ask anybody to spend any capital. So that's really, one of the results is a lot of clarity and education on where you're going to go, instead of just jumping in feet first and spending a lot of money. And then it changes after that, we change over to execution, and it's different sets of results.
Here's my challenge. I'm so fascinated by what you guys are doing, and I need these services. And I want to ask you more and more questions about how you do it and why you do it. But I want to switch the gears here, because our audience here typically tunes in to talk about leadership and culture. My first question in this path, Josh, is if you write a guarantee and your employees are expected to back that up, it's not just you on the front lines. How do you make sure they're in alignment with those guarantees?
Yeah, so there's really 2 core parts to our 5-star service guarantee. So the first part is, how do we back it up? So we have weekly meetings with all of our clients, and the founders that we work with. And at the turn of the month, after the first meeting of the month, we ask them, out of 5 stars, and we normally get the project team off, right? So they're more candid and willing to share because they don't want to share and upset the people that are delivering their work, right? So we get on, me or my co-founder and an account manager get on to show that this is extremely important to us and this feedback's important. So I'm on those calls, or my co-founder's on the call, and we say, out of 5 stars, what would you rank us for the past 30 days? And they can say whatever they'd like, right? And if it's anything under 5, we ask them, why is that? What can we do better? So we actually take that, and it's expected that it's logged. We log it in a sheet a template we use specifically for this. That feedback goes right back to the team, and it gets sanitized and everything else, right? To not call out anybody if it was a personal issue, whatever else it might be. We've done it long enough where we don't really have much of that anymore because we're getting the candid feedback and have, changed a good bit. But part 1 is getting that candid feedback from the founder. And we've had really great responses. And to us, that's an opportunity for us to take our game to the next level. So that's part 1, is getting that 5-star review from the founder, and then bringing it back to the team and having a discussion on an internal call with that team. So that's part 1. Part 2 is we have a weekly meeting where we go through every client that we're working with and everybody in the companies on this that's on the delivery side. And we say, would this client right now, do you think they would give us 5 stars for our service this week? And there's only 1 or 2 answers, yes or no, 1 of 2 answers. If they answer yes, then our answer to hold them accountable is, great. We would like a 5-star review on Clutch or G2. Go contact the client and let's make that happen. Right. So they can't just say yes and know that they're going to just get away with it and it's going to slip through, because we want the 5-star review and a public testimonial. If they say no, we ask, what is the reason why you ranked it that way? What is the next action, and what is the needle mover for that client? So it's really ingrained into our weekly and monthly process, both internally and externally, to deliver this level of service that we do.
This is fascinating because I think a lot of people can have a guarantee, but you guys have actually created process around it that everyone understands, everyone knows what's expected, and it's administered different ways through the weekly, the monthly calls. I appreciate the detail on this. Josh, I want to dive into your leadership thoughts. Like, I know you've exited before, so you built other teams up. This isn't your first rodeo. What would you say your leadership style is that allows you guys to create a team that's aligned to this kind of guarantee?
I think my leadership style is, take some of the things I don't do well and figure out how I can build it into the culture of the organization. So, when I had my last company, I'm really the initiator. I like to go out and sell and close deals. I like to lead the sales and marketing side of the house. And what happens is, as leaders, usually people who like to do that aren't really great at keeping clients, right? They're always adding the new clients, they're driving the growth, but somebody has to keep the clients and keep them happy. And so my leadership style is, how can I look at the different things we want to do as an organization, build them into the culture, build them into the verbiage we use and into the processes, so, anybody can really easily keep it going. So that's one aspect of just, really trying to build things into the culture and, so that they continue on as we grow the company.
So I'm trying to unpack what you said there as far as this. Are you just identifying the weaknesses you have and making that more of a part of the culture that's to support you?
I would say that's probably 50% of the strategy. The other 50% is like, find the things I'm good at and build those in, and find other people to do those as well. But yeah, I think a lot of the early lessons I had as an entrepreneur were, the hardest parts are the shortcomings, right? And you can go try and overcome those yourself, but that may not be in your personality. So there's other people that are really good at it, and there's systems and processes that can be built and things that can be put in the culture. So yeah, I've never thought about putting it that way, but I like the way you did it.
Now, Josh is talking about shortcomings. Another way to look at this is just having a sense of self-awareness. It's one of the keys to you truly being a strong leader, is having self-awareness. What is that really? Well, it's really understanding the shortcomings and really your zone of genius, if you will, inside the business, and spending as much time in that zone of genius, but also aware of the blind spots that are holding you back and the grip that they have. Now, if you're not aware of them, they will slow you down and cause frustration and chaos and all kinds of issues across the organization, and will limit the potential for growth and scale. But when you realize and really tune into the self-awareness of your shortcomings, it will help you accelerate the growth of your business. Back to Josh. Josh, when you are hiring people to come into this 5-star review, is there a specific approach that you're able to sort through to make sure they're going to be the right people for your company?
Yeah. So we use EOS, like the whole traction and EOS model, if you've heard of Traction, the book, or the Entrepreneur Operating System. And part of that is just really hiring on values. And so we've stated our values, and we look at how do our values align with that person. And so we interview and we have culture questions that we ask. So those culture questions are very helpful in us making sure that people are going to align. And it can depend a little bit on department, because personality plays a big part in what values people identify with and the culture. But yeah, we like the culture questions up front that tell us a lot. So like, we're big on personal growth in our organization. It's actually required that you get 1 certification a quarter, and we pay for that. So we're just big on, knowledge, learning, continuing to iterate. And so like, one of our culture questions is, what is the last book you read, when and why? And we get some really great answers, and we get some really bad answers, so we get to filter people on those culture questions up front. And that's just, one step in the process.
I appreciate the detail that you provide there. I talked many times before about hiring on values and literally suggesting, hey, have some questions as a library that other people can use and they can pull from, just so you know how to tune into the values. Instead of, I know one of your values is extreme ownership. You don't want to ask the candidate, hey, do you have extreme ownership? Because it's too direct, right?
Right.
You want to dance around this so that you can assess, is this a natural way of thinking? I appreciate the detail behind that. When you think about, the ongoing candid conversations, you've mentioned that a couple of times here today. And I think a lot of organizations struggle with this. In fact, our next book coming out probably later this year is going to be How to Have Tough Conversations. How did your organization, how do they rally around these candid conversations and make that a part of culture?
What I found with like the harder things in life is, or in business, is if you can normalize the conversation, it's a lot easier. Like somebody once, I don't know what book it was in, or somebody told me, they're like, if every time somebody gets fired, that's the only time you brought somebody into your office to have a conversation, then they all know what's happening, And so I think there's a normalization factor where it's like, hey, we're going to have this hard conversation. We're going to prompt it every month, and we're going to discuss it. And it just gets to be more part of the process. Same thing with our weekly meeting. It's normalized, and we really enable everybody to say, do you really think that they're going to give us a 5-star because this happened, right? So we're giving everybody permission to speak up as well, or we're, not overtly giving them permission, but the space, right, to be able to be comfortable to speak up. And so I think, normalizing those conversations makes it easier and easier. It's really hard when like things have been going wrong, and then you decide today's the day you're going to go attack that. You're going to have this one conversation. Well, that's going to be a really hard conversation. It's probably going to be long. You're probably going to unpack like 10 different things. It's just complicated when you do it that way.
I want to, really dive into the heart of this, because I think a lot of people, it doesn't come natural to have these candid conversations, if you will. I call them tough conversations. How do you help your people have tough conversations, whether it be externally or internally amongst their peers?
I think it's mainly training around framing, so sometimes some people are very direct, and you'll say, hey, how would you ask a client this? And they'll tell you, and you're like, yeah, that's pretty direct. Like that's the tip of the spear, and then some, it's way too beat around the bush. So, having conversations, it's almost like what you said around like, hey, do you have extreme ownership? You can't just directly ask the question. You have to figure out, how do you want to ask to solicit a response that, opens up the conversation, open-ended questions versus closed-ended questions. So I think some of that's really just coaching on how to ask something in the right way and really lead a conversation.
Now, Josh is talking about candid conversations, and I want to let you know we're writing a book about how to have tough conversations. And I want to pull forward some of the work that we've been doing on this book. And I want you, if you're having to coach someone to give a conversation that is tough or a candid conversation, you want to make sure you break it up into 3 parts: before, during, and after. What do you do before? Well, the big thing is you don't go off half-cocked and get emotional. You sit back and make a plan. Now, those are the first 2 steps inside of our framework, but you want to make sure that you do that really well. And the make a plan part, there's a lot to it. I'm not going to unpack it here today. I'll give you a link to get the framework, if you will. But you want to make sure that you also, during the conversation, there's a few things that you keep in mind. You want to make sure you're completely present, that you're listening, that you have the right attitude, and you really understand what's going on inside this. And you want to make sure that you are really listening beyond what's being said and letting that drive the questions as you explore this. There's a whole bunch more to unpack in that. Again, it's inside of our framework that I'll give you. But then the third piece is the after conversation. You want to make sure that you are issue documentation is happening. And you want to also make sure you follow up with a kind of a message of care. All of that is documented in that framework. If you want the full framework for this, just go to genehammett.com/tough conversations. That will give you access to an absolutely free tool that you can use for yourself, for your friends, your family. Just kidding, for your employees. If they are avoiding tough conversations, just go to genehammett.com/tough conversations and download the free framework now. Now, back to Josh. Josh, we've been talking about this 5-star customer guarantee that you use to align the level of service throughout the organization to deliver, impeccable results for your clients. Is there anything that we have left out that you feel like is important in this conversation?
I think the main thing is just, how can you ingrain these in your culture? We've talked about that a little bit, but anytime we have a business issue that seems to be consistent, there's a couple options. One is it a who problem? It's normally not a how. Normally, most people know how to solve it, especially like really high performing leaders. They've read the books, they've interviewed people. It's more of a who. And you can go probably one step past the who and say, how can we also make this ingrain this in our culture? And that's going a step further. And I think that, understanding what culture is and that it's those norms that you ingrain in that go way past, the founder, goes past the manager, goes all the way into the depths of the organization is really just an important aspect of leadership.
And this probably goes without saying, but I noticed the values you have on your website. It seems like they are ingrained into the values as well. White glove service, extreme ownership, and some of the others too are all in alignment with this 5-star customer service idea.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that's the thing where the more you can align, the easier it is to explain. Because when I talk about 5-star service, I can talk about white glove service. And I can ask my team, a new team member comes on. I'm like, when was the last time you had a white glove experience? Like, what did you feel? What happened? And I'm like, that's what we do for clients. So they've experienced it in some way. So I think there's a lot of good ways to make sure that these things overlap and you don't have values that are one place and then a culture that's different and then a delivery and process system that's completely different. I'm a big fan of alignment and making it all work together.
Well, I would imagine so. If you're trying to scale your people up to using the marketing and sales balance that you talked about earlier and what you're doing, you want this to be easy and simple and consistent across the platform. So Josh, thank you for being here to talk about your 5-star customer guarantee.
Thank you for having me.
Wow, I love this interview. I love the detail that he provided for us around this 5-star service guarantee. Now, hopefully you took notes. Hope I took a lot of notes about, the monthly meetings, the weekly meetings, and how that kind of works together and what that means about employee alignment. I think that's something that we should all pay attention to because we all want to be able to have the kind of company that delivers a 5-star service. Well, when you have the right structure and you have the right culture, this gets a lot easier. The service guarantee is a way to do that. Hopefully you find some value in this. My job here is to help you grow your business and scale it fast. We do executive coaching, we do leadership development. If any of those are something you're interested in, make sure you keep in touch with us. Go to genehammett.com, find out more about what we're doing. All that being said, when you think of growth and you think of leadership, think of Growth Think Tank and lead with courage. We'll see you next time.